Can ordinary, good people do terrible things? Can they turn into real villains? Human history provides us with many examples to prove that this is, unfortunately, possible. From genocide to corporate scandals, from domestic violence to atrocities in war, evil is committed not by monsters, but by ordinary people who find themselves in a certain situation. How does this happen? What makes good people cross the line into immoral and cruel acts? Does the potential for evil lie hidden in each of us? Today, we will explore the Lucifer Effect, a concept proposed by the famous American social psychologist Philip Zimbardo to explain how ordinary people can be influenced by circumstances to commit immoral and cruel acts. We will examine the famous Stanford prison experiment, analyze real examples of the manifestation of this effect in various spheres of life, and suggest strategies to counteract this dangerous phenomenon. Are you ready to look into the dark side of human nature? In August 1971, Philip Zimbardo, a professor of psychology at Stanford University, conducted an experiment to investigate the psychological impact of the prison environment on prisoners and guards. The experiment was designed to answer the question: is prison cruelty the result of sadistic tendencies of individuals, or is it the result of the prison environment itself, which corrupts even the most ordinary people? For this purpose, Zimbardo created a simulated prison in the basement of Stanford University and recruited a group of volunteers, ordinary students with no criminal tendencies. 24 students were selected to participate in the experiment and randomly divided into two groups: prisoners and guards. Prisoners were unexpectedly arrested at their homes, put through a humiliating search procedure, and taken to a makeshift prison. They were given uniforms with a number, stripped of their names and identity. Guards, in turn, were given uniforms, batons, and mirrored sunglasses, depriving them of visual contact with the prisoners. They were instructed to maintain order in the prison, but without the use of physical violence. The experiment was supposed to last 2 weeks, but what happened next shocked everyone. From the very beginning of the experiment, the guards began to show sadistic tendencies. They invented more and more humiliating and cruel rules, forced the prisoners to perform meaningless tasks, deprived them of sleep and food. They used psychological pressure tactics to break the will of the prisoners and establish total control over them. Prisoners, in turn, tried to rebel and resist, but their attempts were quickly suppressed. The atmosphere in the prison became increasingly tense and aggressive. The experiment quickly spiraled out of control, and this became evident in the early stages of the experiment. The guards began to use increasingly harsh methods of punishment, which created an atmosphere of fear and depression among the prisoners. The psychological pressure to which the participants were subjected caused them serious problems, including depression, anxiety, and panic attacks. Some of the prisoners began to show clear signs of psychosis, indicating deep emotional and psychological trauma, while some participants fell into a state of submission and apathy, losing all hope of escape. Others attempted to actively resist the cruel conditions, but their resistance only exacerbated the situation, leading to even more violent measures by the guards. These dynamics of interaction between groups of participants demonstrated how quickly and unpredictably human behavior can be altered by external factors. Zimbardo, without realizing it, was becoming more and more involved in the role of warden, which further hampered his ability to objectively assess what was going on. He overlooked the ethical boundaries of the experiment, which called into question not only the scientific results, but also the morality of the research being conducted. The result was a situation in which the boundaries between the research and the actual violence became blurred, eventually leading to the need to stop the experiment earlier than planned. The experiment was terminated prematurely after only 6 days at the insistence of Christina Maslick, a graduate student of Zimbardo, who came to visit the prison and was appalled by what she saw. She declared that the experiment was immoral and was causing irreparable harm to the participants. Zimbardo, realizing the magnitude of what had happened, decided to terminate the experiment. Zimbardo was shocked at how quickly ordinary students were turned into cruel guards and broken prisoners. He concluded that the situation had a much greater impact on people as behavior than their personalities. The Stanford prison experiment became one of the most famous and controversial experiments in the history of psychology, raising important questions about the ethics of scientific research and the nature of evil. The Lucifer Effect is the term Philip Zimbardo used to describe the process by which good people can do bad things under the influence of certain circumstances. Zimbardo identified several key factors that contribute to this effect: social environment, system, empowerment, de-individualization, and ideology. The social environment is a complex and multifaceted concept that includes not only the physical environment in which people live and interact, but also the social norms that shape their behavior and the expectations that society has of them. An important aspect of this setting is the system, which is a hierarchical structure within which people occupy certain roles and obey established rules. In such a system, each individual can be given power, which means giving him or her the ability to influence others and make decisions on their behalf. However, such power can have both positive and negative consequences. De-individualization is another key element that describes the process of losing one's sense of individuality and responsibility in the context of a group. When people become part of a larger group, they may begin to feel less responsible for their actions, leading to a decrease in self-control and moral responsibility. Ideology, in turn, is a system of beliefs and values that can justify cruelty and violence, allowing people to act in ways that are contrary to their internal moral principles. These factors, interacting with each other, create conditions in which individuals may begin to commit acts that they would never do in normal life. Thus, the influence of social setting, system, power, de-individuation, and ideology on human behavior is an important aspect of understanding how and why phenomena such as violence and brutality occur in society. The Stanford prison experiment is just one example of the Lucifer Effect. A more tragic example is the scandal at Abu Ghraib prison in Iraq, where U.S. soldiers tortured and humiliated prisoners. Photographs made public in 2004 shocked the world. They showed horrifying facts of prisoner abuse committed by American soldiers who seemed to feel no responsibility for their actions. Analyzing the events at Abu Ghraib prison illustrates how the Lucifer Effect can manifest itself in real life, leading to profound and disturbing consequences. In a war situation where stress and pressure are at an all-time high, the American soldiers in this situation were given power over the prisoners, creating unique circumstances for human nature to manifest itself. Wearing the military uniform played a significant role in individualizing these soldiers, blurring the boundaries between their personal identity and the identity imposed by the system. It allowed them to perceive themselves as part of a larger machine, which reduced the level of personal responsibility for their actions. An important aspect becomes that the system they were in actively justified their actions, presenting prisoners not as human beings with rights and feelings, but as enemies who deserved to be punished. This deontological justification created an additional layer of legitimization for brutal acts, which allowed soldiers to act contrary to their internal moral principles. The combination of these factors, power, de-individualization, and ideological justification, led good people, given certain conditions and contexts, to commit horrific acts that would be impossible in ordinary life. The events at Abu Ghraib thus serve as a disturbing reminder of how easily human nature can be distorted by environmental and social factors. The Lucifer Effect can also manifest itself in personal relationships, particularly in situations of domestic violence. In families where violence exists, certain social roles are often formed, where one person controls and suppresses the other. Over time, the cycle of violence repeats itself, and the victim often becomes a hostage of the situation, unable to escape from it. In cases of domestic violence, the aggressor often uses their power and control to intimidate and manipulate their victim, thus creating a toxic atmosphere in which the victim loses a sense of safety and confidence. One of the most common methods of control is to isolate the victim from their friends and family, resulting in a breakdown of social ties and a decrease in the support they could count on. This process of isolation can occur gradually as the aggressor begins to impress upon the victim that her loved ones do not understand her or that they may harm her. Psychological pressure also plays a key role in this process. The aggressor may use threats, manipulation, and humiliation to suppress the victim's will and convince her that she is unable to cope with the situation on her own. Justification of his actions becomes another tool that the aggressor uses to legitimize his behavior. He may claim that his actions are motivated by love or care, which makes the victim feel guilty and embarrassed about his experiences. As a result of all this, the victim often finds herself in a state of complete helplessness and dependence on the aggressor, making her situation even more difficult and hopeless. She may begin to doubt her adequacy and perception of reality, which further strengthens the power of the aggressor. In this way, the dynamics of domestic violence become a vicious circle where fear and control are intertwined, creating conditions in which the victim feels trapped and without a way out of this terrible situation. There are specific steps we can take in our daily lives to protect ourselves from the Lucifer effect. First, choose your environment. Connect with people who share your values and support you. Second, build healthy relationships. Learn to say no, set boundaries, and don't let other people manipulate you. Third, don't be afraid to stand up to pressure. If you see something going wrong, don't be afraid to speak up and defend your point of view. Finally, always remember the consequences of your actions. Before you do something, think about how it will affect you and others. It is important to remember that resisting the Lucifer effect is not a one-time effort, but a constant work on oneself that requires considerable effort and time. It is a process in which self-discipline becomes a fundamental element, because it is what allows us to remain true to our moral principles even in the most difficult situations. Courage, in turn, is necessary to resist the pressure of others and to resist the temptation to justify immoral actions. A willingness to self-reflect plays a key role in this process, as it allows us to recognize our weaknesses and biases and to identify when we may be on the verge of moral failure. This constant internal dialogue and critical look at our own actions helps us to maintain our humanity and not lose touch with our values. Moreover, this approach is necessary not only for personal development, but also for the creation of a more just and humane society. Each of us, by actively working on ourselves and overcoming internal conflicts, contributes to the common cause of fighting violence and injustice. In this way, confronting the Lucifer effect becomes not just a personal challenge, but an important part of the collective effort to build a world of respect and understanding rather than fear and aggression. The Lucifer effect is a powerful warning that reminds us of the fragility of human nature and how susceptible we all are to the circumstances in which we find ourselves. This effect illustrates how even the most virtuous people can do terrible things if they find themselves in the wrong environment or under the influence of certain factors. However, this does not mean that we are completely powerless in the face of such situations. Understanding this effect opens the door to self-awareness and allows us to protect ourselves and others from evil. We must remember that awareness is a key tool that helps us recognize potential threats and act in accordance with our ethical principles. Critical thinking also plays an important role in enabling us to analyze situations and make informed decisions, rather than succumbing to impulses or societal pressures. Empathy, in turn, fosters an understanding of the feelings and experiences of others, which can prevent cruelty and injustice. Ethical principles serve as our moral compass, guiding us on the path of kindness and justice. Let us remember this important lesson. Let us be vigilant in our actions and thoughts, and let us strive to create a better world for all of us. In the end, it is our choices and our willingness to resist negative influences that will determine what kind of society we will have. Thank you for watching. If this video was helpful to you, give it a like, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new videos about psychology. Remember that knowledge is power. Explore yourself, explore the world, and be human. See you all again.